In just a few days, I had to face so many dangers that I don't even want to remember it. I never imagined that trip would change my life forever. What started as a simple expedition in the jungle turned into a desperate fight for survival. I was alone, lost in the middle of the jungle with no food, no water, and surrounded by wild animals that could terrify anyone. But something saved my life, and here I will tell you how I made it. The jungle is a world of its own. Giant trees rise like buildings, barely letting sunlight through. Every step could be your last, if you're not careful. Its paths are endless mazes. Its life is relentless. And its rules are simple. The strongest survive. I wasn't alone in the beginning. I went with my companions, and during our journey we reached a local tribe. They warned us about dangerous areas and the animals we should avoid. They also invited us to try the local food. I still remember the taste of that strange worm that was incredibly similar to chicken. An unexpected delicacy in the middle of the wild. But what was supposed to be a peaceful and fascinating experience became a nightmare. A simple mistake. A moment of distraction. I saw a strange animal, a red monkey. I got curious and wanted to take a picture. The monkey kept moving away, and in my attempt to get a good shot, I wandered too far from the camp. I took a wrong turn, and suddenly, I was lost. There is no more terrifying feeling than being completely alone in a place with no paths, no signal to call for help, and where every shadow could be hiding something deadly. Every crackle in the vegetation made me hold my breath. I knew I wasn't alone, that in the jungle, there are creatures you should never run into. Luckily, I had my travel bag, which gave me a small advantage. I tried to find my way back, but it was useless. The vegetation looked so similar that I couldn't recognize any clear path. When night fell, I decided to camp. I had a portable tent in my backpack, and with some effort, I managed to start a fire to light the area and keep warm. That first night I learned who my real neighbors were, the jaguars, silent rulers of the dark. Their distant roar sent chills down my spine. Through a small hole in the tent zipper, I saw something that froze me. Two amber eyes were shining from the bushes. I stayed completely still, without breathing, not daring to move a single muscle. Slowly, I backed away without breaking eye contact, avoiding direct eye contact. That night I understood the true meaning of fear. Sleeping was impossible. But at dawn, something unexpected happened. In front of me, holding a piece of fruit, was the same red monkey I had tried to photograph. For a moment, I thought it was offering me food. I approached, tried to take the fruit, but the monkey climbed the trees and disappeared. I sighed and told myself, the most important thing now is to find a safe place. I tried using my phone, but still had no signal. I checked my backpack. I had a little water and some food, just enough for one day. With no better option, I started walking aimlessly. Hours later, I reached a swampy area. I immediately remembered what the tribe had warned us about. Never step into a swamp. It's full of anacondas. And just as I was thinking about that, I saw it. A massive anaconda was slowly sliding just a few meters away from me. I held my breath. My only hope was that it wasn't hungry. And luckily, its swollen belly showed it had eaten recently. It completely ignored me and kept moving. But in that moment, fear surrounded me like never before. Slowly, with extreme caution, I backed away until I was far from that area. Even then, at that moment, I felt deep fear. Slowly, I moved away from that place. On the third day, my situation became critical. My water was completely gone, and thirst was starting to consume me. I remembered the basic survival lessons I had learned before the expedition. I knew I had to find water soon, or I wouldn't last much longer. Using the few navigation skills I had, I searched for signs of a possible river or stream. I listened carefully, trying to catch the sound of water running through the dense vegetation. I watched the behavior of the birds and followed the direction they flew at dawn, since they usually head toward water sources. After hours of walking, a faint but unmistakable sound reached my ears. Water flowing over rocks. With renewed energy, I hurried my pace until I reached a small river with crystal clear water hidden within the vegetation. Never before had the simple sound of water seemed so beautiful to me. I approached cautiously, remembering the warnings about caimans and other aquatic predators. I carefully examined the surroundings before kneeling at the riverbank. I took out my canteen and filled it to the top, adding a few drops of the purifier I always carried in my emergency kit. While I waited for the water to be safe to drink, I splashed my face and arms, feeling life return to my exhausted body. This river didn't just provide me with vital water. It also gave me a path to follow. Rivers often lead to human settlements, and if I followed it, my chances of finding help or recognizing a landmark that could guide me back to camp or the village would increase. With renewed hope and a full canteen, I decided to follow the river's course. The jungle seemed less threatening now that I had water and a direction to go. Maybe after all, I would survive this trial that fate had placed in my path. But as I walked along the river, I had to stop. A jaguar had come down to drink. I hid and waited. When the jaguar left, I resumed my path. Even though wild animals usually fear humans, it's best not to find out if one of them reacts differently. I camped near the river. At dawn on the fourth day, I began moving forward following the current. The path was difficult, switching between muddy shores and areas where the vegetation was so dense that I had to step into the water to continue. I knew the river could be as dangerous as it was generous, so I kept my senses alert. It wasn't long before I faced the dangers lurking in these waters. As I crossed a shallow area, a bad step made me stumble. In an instant, I felt sharp pain. A young anaconda had bitten me. With all my strength, I pushed it away, but the wound on my leg was deep. I tied an improvised bandage and rested for a while to regain my strength. Hours later, while resting under the shade of a tree, I heard an intense buzzing. A swarm of tropical mosquitoes descended on me like a living storm. I quickly applied the last of my repellent, but I had already suffered dozens of bites. I knew that diseases carried by these insects could be as deadly as any predator. I searched for shelter under a pile of leaves to protect myself until the insect storm passed. By sunset, as the light began to fade, I reached a narrow section where the river formed rapids. My injured foot worried me, but I had no other choice. There was no way around, so I had to cross. The water was treacherous. The slippery rocks made every movement difficult. One wrong step, and the current swept me away. I lost my balance and fell, hitting a submerged rock. The pain was intense, but I managed to grab onto an exposed root, and with great effort, I dragged myself to the shore. I was soaked and exhausted, but still alive. That night was the only one where I was able to sleep. My body was completely drained, and every muscle ached. I lit a small fire to dry my clothes and keep predators away. The sound of the fire crackled softly in the darkness. For the first time in days, I felt a little safe. But even then, I never stopped hearing the sounds of the jungle. Branches snapping in the distance, something moving in the bushes. Even so, my body couldn't take it anymore. I gave in to deep sleep, not knowing if I would wake up the next day. When the sunrise of the fifth day lit up the jungle, the river had changed. Its waters widened as if guiding me somewhere. I took down my improvised shelter and started walking faster. Something in the air told me I was close to something. I didn't know if it would be my salvation, or a new danger. As I moved forward, the vegetation changed. The trees were not as dense, and sunlight reached the ground more easily. That was when I saw the first signs of human activity. A piece of rope tied to a tree. Remains of an old campfire. My heart raced. I couldn't believe it. I hurried as much as my exhausted body allowed me. But what I found next made me stop in my tracks. Some bones were sticking out of the damp earth. Something inside me told me not to look, but curiosity was stronger. I stepped closer and dug a little with my trembling hands. When I saw what was there, a chill ran down my spine. It was a body, or what was left of one. The bones were broken and crushed, as if something had smashed them with monstrous force. It didn't look like a natural death. The smell of disturbed earth mixed with something else. Something rotten turned my stomach. I backed away immediately, my instincts screaming at me to get out of there. The last thing I needed was to find out what or who had done this. I didn't look back. I didn't want to imagine that maybe something was watching me from the darkness. I kept walking without stopping. My body was at its limit, but now fear was stronger than exhaustion. At midday, as I rounded a bend in the river, something caught my attention. Human footprints. They were fresh, imprinted in the damp soil. My heart pounded. If there were people nearby, then maybe I was saved. I started following them with excitement, forgetting for a moment the pain in my legs. And then I heard it. Voices. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But no, they were there. Human voices speaking in the local dialect. With the last bit of strength I had left, I ran towards the voices. Every step was a struggle, but hope pushed me forward. Suddenly, the river opened into a small natural bay, and there, in front of me, was the village of the tribe we had visited days ago. Several fishermen turned to see my figure emerging from the jungle. I was dirty, injured, and on the verge of collapse. For a moment, they didn't react until one of them recognized me and started shouting, calling the others. Among the crowd, I saw familiar faces, my expedition partners. In seconds, fear and desperation disappeared. We embraced as tears of relief ran down my face. They told me, "We thought you were dead. We've been searching for you for days. We were organizing one last expedition upstream." That night, surrounded by my friends and the kind villagers, as I recovered with warm food and medical attention, I understood that I had survived thanks to a mix of basic knowledge, instinct, and, above all, the determination to not give up. The jungle had taught me a great lesson. Never stray too far from people. It showed me its dangers and its beauty. It allowed me to return to tell my story. Surviving in a place like this is not just about strength, but about knowledge, and in some cases, pure luck. But tell me, do you think you would have escaped from a place like this if you had been in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any survival adventures. See you in the next video.